Hello Apes, and welcome back to the second screencast for Chapter 1. And Chapter 1 again is the Science and Sustainability and Introduction to Environmental Science. So today we're going to consider why we depend on the ecosystem services. And hopefully you have a little bit of a memory back from your year in biology, if you had me or if you had Mrs. Mitchell, and you remember that we talked about ecosystem services. And these are services that our ecosystem provides for us. And somebody tried to put a price on them at one time, and they said that the cost of these services were valued at $33 trillion. And they are actually what nature provides for us, the goods that nature provides for us. So, for example, trees, they help to purify the air. They help to remove gases like carbon dioxide from the atmosphere, which is toxic, and they recycle that carbon dioxide into glucose, which is a food source, a sugar that we use. Another benefit of trees is they put moisture back into the air. When the rain comes down and goes into the soil, that water needs to be put back up, and it's either put back up through evaporation or by transpiration through the leaves. So this is an ecosystem service. Also, the roots of the ground and that go into the ground, they also help to hold soil in. When storms come, they help to prevent flooding that takes place or erosion of soil. Trees also provide habitats for birds and other animals to live in. They also provide a food source from the different fruits and seeds that they can produce. So these are ecosystem services. And we've got a lot of different cycles. We've talked about nutrient cycles, which we'll look at again in more detail. And we'll talk about those cycles that move things like nitrogen and phosphorus and carbon and water. And there will be a few others that we'll add to these nutrient cycles. We call them biogeochemical cycles because of the services they provide. Our oceans and our landscape help to regulate the climate, as well as the trees and the plants that we've talked about, because again, they're putting the moisture into the atmosphere, they're recycling that moisture. So that affects how much moisture goes up for rain, for droughts. Again, just some of the few ecosystem services that are offered. As we talk about the water cycle, there's a purification of water. With that first picture we looked at, 75% of our Earth's surface is covered in water, and about 60% of that is salt water. And we know we can't drink salt water. So again, one of the services is to take that water and have evaporation happen, which separates the salt and gives us the pure water that we can drink. And only a little less than 1% of the water that we get is available for us to drink. And that's all 7 billion people on the planet. Our ecosystem services also recycle. They recycle the wastes that they receive, and they help us to survive. This summer we've been plagued, I think, with mosquitoes and ticks, but we've got natural organisms that eat those. Bats are big on eating the mosquitoes, so they help keep those mosquito populations down. There's other insects that will eat the ticks that are around. So there's natural pesticides that we have. I can't stand those little house centipedes. I call them gazillion-leggers. They are the biggest pest to me, besides mosquitoes, because I hate being a blood feast for a mosquito. But I really despise them, but they serve a purpose because they keep other insect numbers down. They eat spiders, they eat flies, they eat fleas, they eat other sorts of pests, ants that could come into your house. So they provide a service. Even though we don't like them, they provide a service. They have a job, they have a niche. But here's where we have a problem is we degrade these ecosystem services because we deplete the resources that we have. We're learning to replenish those resources. For example, like Christmas tree farms. They now, with the Christmas trees, they will plant an area of new Christmas trees so that they constantly have a supply. If they cut down 100, they'll plant 100 more, and that will enable them to keep those reserves available. So we know this. We destroy habitat. We've plowed under prairies and built on those prairies before we understood the benefit of having the prairies. Even at our own New Jersey shore, we filled in marshland before and wetlands before we realized that they were huge habitats and nurseries for fish and for birds. And then when the industrial fishermen started to not be able to bring in as much fish, we realized that we had filled in the places where they breed in these wetlands and these marshes. So that's some of the things that we need to keep in mind. We also generate a lot of pollution. Cars, like I can remember when I was first starting to drive, our cars never had catalytic converters. And now they have catalytic converters on them to convert the pollution so that we're not putting as much lead and carbon monoxide up into the atmosphere. And even our fuel has additives in it during different times of the years to reduce the amount of pollution. And we know that we're going to smart cars and hybrids that are also helping to reduce that. Increased human affluence has intensified this degradation. So the more affluent we become, the more money that we have, the more cars we own, the bigger our homes are, the more appliances that we have, the more electricity we use, and this is degrading those natural resources. So you've heard me throw out the number 7 billion people on the planet, and that 7 billion people were here because of the agricultural revolution, because we've increased ways of growing crops, improved being able to have healthier and bigger and better livestock. We have more stable food supplies across the world. Then the Industrial Revolution came, and that really pushed people to live in urban centers because now we had fossil fuels, oil, gas, coal. We improved our sanitation techniques. One of the things we'll be doing this year is going to a wastewater treatment facility, and you're going to see how how brown sludge is changed to clear drinking water. It's amazing, and we've improved our sanitation techniques. We have better medicines, so that means that healthcare has improved, and we are now also using pesticides and fertilizers on our crops to help grow better crops and again improve that agriculture. So this is what has enabled our population to grow exponentially over the years. And you've seen a similar graph to this before. Graphs are really important as we talk about what is going to be required of you as far as the AP environmental exam. You're going to have to be able to take a look at these graphs and be able to interpret them and tell what they mean and apply information that you've learned throughout the year to the graphs and charts. So here from this you can see pretty clearly that as soon as that Industrial Revolution began, the population numbers went up exponentially. So when we come back and we look here at the agriculture revolution, it really didn't start a huge growth, but it did slowly. We saw the numbers going up, and then that industrial revolution just let everything go, and we continue to grow exponentially. You heard me mention the term affluence, and we're going to be talking about that a little bit more because that is going to increase our consumption of our natural resources. The ecological footprint, I'm going to have you calculate your own ecological footprint and come back, and I want you to tell me how many planet Earths it would take for you to live the way that you're living right now. When we look at how productive land is and the amount of water we need, we have to... Sorry, I lost my little trend of thought there. I'm sitting outside today enjoying the birds and was watching a bird and got off track there. So when we take a look at our ecological footprint, we look at what our impact is per person or population on the earth. And we look at how biologically productive land is. We look at how much water is required to supply the raw resources for these people, this population, and we look at how they dispose of and how they recycle the waste. The tendency is for people in rich nations to have much larger ecological footprints than people in poorer nations because of the availability of technology that we have. In producing that technology, that is what is going to increase that ecological footprint. Humans also have the tendency to overshoot, and that's what we've been doing, is we're overshooting the Earth's capacity to support us. We are using renewable resources 50% faster than they are being replenished, and that is something that we need to take ownership of. So if everyone consumed the amount of resources that the U.S. does, we would need 4 planet Earths in order to support our use. So here, let's take a look at this graph that you're looking at. The data that is on here indicates that we have overshot the biocapacity, and one of the terms that you're going to be hearing is biocapacity, and that is the capacity of the Earth to support us. We are using renewable resources at 50% faster than they are being replenished, as we stated before. And this is where, if I can get my pointer to come up, this is where we were in the 1960s, and now where we are in the 2000s. There's one. What this tells us is that historical evidence shows that civilizations can crumble when pressures from population and consumption overwhelm resource availability. And that's where we're going to draw our focus. So environmental science then is going to help us avoid our past mistakes. And we're 14 minutes in, so we're going to end here. And we'll talk about those past mistakes and how we can avoid them in the next set.